45 is an absolutely terrifying number, not because of graying hair or slowing metabolisms, but because of the brutal, unyielding mathematics of time. When you reach this exact milestone, you are standing dead in the center of the financial chessboard. You have spent roughly 20 years trading your physical energy, your youth, and your stress for a paycheck. You have likely pushed over $1 million of gross income through your hands. And yet, looking forward, you only have about 20 years of peak earning power left before society, your body, or the economy forces you off the stage. This is not a moment for passive reflection. This is a moment for a ruthless financial autopsy. If you look at your bank accounts and realize you have virtually nothing to show for 2 decades of labor, this is not a moment to drown in guilt. The system is quite literally designed to extract your wealth while making you feel like you are winning. The greatest tragedy of the modern middle class is that millions of people are drastically behind in the game of life. And their biggest problem is that they do not even realize the scoreboard exists. They are losing silently. To understand the architecture of this invisible trap, you do not need to look at billionaires or Wall Street hedge funds. You only need to look at 2 hypothetical men living in the exact same suburban neighborhood. We will call them Richard and Peter. Both men are 45 years old. Both men work in similar corporate roles. Both men bring home a combined household income of roughly $130,000 a year. To the Amazon delivery driver dropping off packages at their front doors, their lives look identical. In fact, if you ask their neighbors, Peter looked significantly more successful. His driveway features a newer SUV. His kitchen was just remodeled with imported quartz. And his social media is a highlight reel of Caribbean vacations. But if you rip roof off their houses and audit their actual balance sheets, the reality is staggering. Peter's financial goals entirely hollowed out by leverage and standing one medical emergency away from total ruin. Richard is an absolute fortress. The difference between these 2 men is not a secret crypto investment, a rich uncle, or a lucky lottery ticket. The gap between them was built quietly, day by day, across 7 silent checkpoints over the last 20 years. The first checkpoint is the normalization of consumer debt. Peter carries roughly $158,000 in non-mortgage debt, sitting perfectly in line with the national average for Generation X. He carries a revolving credit card balance of nearly $10,000. He finances his cars. He finances his furniture. Peter views a monthly payment as a permanent, unavoidable utility bill, just like electricity or water. He is currently bleeding out $2,000 every single month just to service the ghosts of his past consumption. Let us run the brutal math on Peter's lifestyle. If he simply refused to carry consumer debt and took that exact same $24,000 a year, money he is already used to not having, and redirected it into a boring baseline index fund returning a historical 7%, over 20 years that money would transform into over $1 million. That is like a furnace in your house. It is a tool. You turn it on to cook a meal, and then you shut it off immediately. Peter left the gas running for 2 straight decades. He is literally burning his own retirement to finance leather car seats that are currently rotting in his driveway. Richard, on the other hand, owes nothing to anyone except his mortgage lender. His cash flow belongs entirely to his future. The second checkpoint is understanding what wealth actually is. Peter feels wealthy because he has access to high credit limits. But his actual net worth is a fragile illusion. How do you know if you are mathematically on track? You do not ask a financial influencer. You look at the flawless formula developed by researchers who spent decades studying actual, self-made millionaires. It is called the wealth equation, age income 10. Take your current age, multiply it by your pre-tax annual household income, and divide that number by 10. If you are 45 and making $1 trillion, your target net worth should be $585,000. Richard has nearly double that amount. He is what researchers call a prodigious accumulator of wealth. He aggressively turns his income into permanent equity. Peter has barely a third of that target. He is an under-accumulator of wealth. Peter has confused the appearance of money with the possession of capital. He thinks the goal of making money is to spend it to show people he has it. Richard knows the goal of making money is to buy back his own freedom. The third checkpoint is the absolute clarity of your investment strategy. If someone kicks your front door down at 3 o'clock a.m., throws a glass of ice water in your face, and demands to know your investment strategy, you should be able to answer in 3 sentences without using a single piece of financial jargon. What do you own? What does it cost you to own it? Why do you own it? Richard consolidated his old employer 401k accounts into a single Vanguard index fund. By doing this, he dropped his management expense ratio from an industry standard 0.85% down to a microscopic 0.05%. That tiny, seemingly insignificant decimal shift mathematically saves him over $175,000 in predatory fees over 20 years. Peter has 4 different retirement accounts scattered across previous employers, paying exorbitant, hidden fees to active managers who are legally skimming his life savings while routinely failing to even beat the baseline stock market. Peter avoids looking at his accounts because the terminology confuses him, and the financial industry happily monetizes his avoidance. The fourth checkpoint is the oxygen tank. The internet will confidently tell you that you only need 3 to 6 months of expenses saved in an emergency fund. That is fantastic advice if you are 25 years old, renting a studio apartment, and have absolutely nothing to lose. It is suicidal advice for a 45-year-old. At this stage in your life, you have a mortgage, children, aging parents, and a physical body that takes much longer to heal. Your assets are much larger, but they are entirely illiquid. You cannot eat the drywall in your living room to pay a medical bill. You need 12 full months of pure, accessible, liquid cash. When Peter's transmission blew on the highway, he did not have cash. He was forced to swipe a credit card at a punishing 22% interest rate. A $4,000 mechanical failure instantly mutated into a $5,000 financial wound. Without a cash buffer, every minor inconvenience forced you to rent money from banks at predatory rates. Richard's 12-month emergency fund does not just protect his portfolio, it protects his nervous system. The fifth checkpoint is the permanent financial reputation known as your credit score. Many people treat their credit score as a vanity metric, but it is the exact lens through which the global financial system assesses your trustworthiness. Maintaining a score above 800 requires ruthless mechanical discipline. Keeping your credit utilization below 10, refusing to close your oldest accounts, and guarding your profile against unnecessary hard inquiries. The difference between a good score of 710 and an excellent score of 820 is not just a badge of honor. It is a massive transfer of wealth. On a standard 30-year mortgage, the person with the 710 score will pay roughly $15,000 more in pure, unadulterated interest to the bank than the person with the 820 score. That is a decent used car's worth of cash handed directly to a bank executive, simply because you could not be bothered to automate your payments or keep your balances low. The sixth checkpoint is the armor. We have been culturally conditioned to believe that personal bankruptcies happen because people blow their money at casinos, buy too many designer shoes, or make catastrophic stock market bets. The data reveals a terrifyingly different reality. According to comprehensive consumer bankruptcy research, over 65% of all personal bankruptcies in the United States are tied directly to medical crises. It is not stupidity that wiped out the middle class, it is bad luck colliding with a whack of a shield. Richard carries robust health insurance, perpetual life insurance, and maximum liability coverage on his vehicles. He understands a profound truth that Peter ignores. The real financial risk of a car crash is not replacing your own crumpled bumper. The real risk is being sued for $3 million by the young professional you accidentally paralyzed in the crosswalk. Peter buys the absolute legal minimum insurance to save $40 a month, leaving a catastrophic backdoor completely wide open for fate to walk through and take everything he owns. The seventh checkpoint is the most chilling. It is the ultimate test of whether you are an adult managing a legacy or a child playing with money. The most shocking statistic in modern finance is this. 62% of Generation X, the exact demographic that has children, houses, and complex financial lives, do not have a will or an estate plan. They have less legal protection than millennials and Generation Z. If you die without a will, the state does not care about your intentions, your promises, or your family's dynamic. A politician you have never met wrote a generic cold legal formula that will dictate exactly how your assets are carved up. A judge who has never looked your child in the eye will decide who raises them. Peter has not updated the beneficiary on his 401k since he opened it at age 26. If he suffers a fatal heart attack tomorrow, a massive six-figure check bypasses his wife of 12 years and his 2 young children, and goes directly to his elderly mother, who is currently receiving government assistance. Peter's negligence will not just cause grief, it will create a multi-generational trauma wrapped in a brutal tax nightmare. Richard spent $2,000 in one afternoon with an estate attorney to build an ironclad replicable living trust. He knows that true wealth is not just about accumulating capital. It is about controlling exactly where it goes when you can no longer speak for it. The 8th checkpoint is the seductive trap of the golden handcuffs. At 45, you are likely entering your absolute peak earning years. You have a title, the corner office, or at least seniority. But this is exactly where corporate America and societal expectations spin their most elegant invisible trap. Peter makes $130,000 a year, but he feels remarkably broke because he suffers from advanced stage lifestyle creep. Every time Peter received a promotion over the last 15 years, he subconsciously absorbed a new societal expectation of how a director should live. He upgraded the neighborhood, the wardrobe, and the vacations. He is trapped in a paradox. His income has never been higher, but he cannot quit the job he secretly hates because his bloated lifestyle requires a massive, uninterrupted cash flow just to maintain the illusion. He is a highly paid indentured servant to his own ego. Richard, making the exact same income, understands that an increase in salary is not a mandate to increase consumption. When Richard gets a 10% raise, he does not go to the car dealership. He logs into his payroll portal and increases his investment contributions by 10%. By enforcing artificial scarcity and freezing his lifestyle costs at a comfortable baseline, Richard's high income acts as a weapon of mass accumulation. He is not tied to his desk by desperation, he is there by choice. The 9th checkpoint is the brutal reality of the tax illiteracy tax. At 45, the largest single expense in your entire life is not your mortgage, your children, or your healthcare. It is taxes. Yet, the average middle-class worker spends 0 hours a year studying the tax code and hundreds of hours scrolling through social media, blissfully unaware of how much wealth is being legally confiscated from them. Every April, Peter jumps for joy because his accountant tells him he is getting a $4,000 tax refund. Peter posts about it online and buys an 85-inch television. He fails to realize that a tax refund is not a gift from the government. It means he overpaid the IRS out of his own paycheck every single week, giving the government a $4,000 interest-free loan for a year. Worse, Peter keeps his sparse leftover cash in a standard taxable brokerage account, getting hit with capital gains taxes every time a fund manager buys or sells. He is bleeding out from 1,000 microscopic cuts. Richard treats legal, structural tax avoidance as a second job. He utilizes the holy trinity of middle-class wealth building. He maxes out his traditional 401k to artificially lower his taxable income today. He relentlessly funds his Roth IRA to shield future growth permanently, and he maxes out his health savings account SHA for its unmatched triple tax advantage. Richard does not get a massive tax refund in April because he dialed his withholdings imperfectly. He keeps his money compounding in his own accounts, starving the IRS methodically and legally. The 10th checkpoint is the most emotionally manipulated, the college trap, or what financial planners call sacrificing the captain. At 45, your children are likely entering high school. This is the exact moment when the American dream violently collides with financial reality. The cultural narrative insists that a good parent will do absolutely anything to send their child to a prestigious, four-year university, even if it means destroying their own financial future. Peter's daughter wants to go to an out-of-state private university that costs $60,000 a year, but Peter only has $40,000 saved. Driven by parental guilt and the desire to put a prestigious bumper sticker on his SUV, Peter makes a catastrophic mistake. He co-signs $150,000 in high-interest private student loans and borrows $50,000 against his own $401k. Peter has effectively sacrificed the captain to save a passenger, guaranteeing he will be working well into his 70s to pay for a piece of paper. Richard loves his children just as intensely, but he understands a brutal financial law. You can borrow money to pay for college, but you cannot borrow money to pay for retirement. Richard sits his children down, opens a spreadsheet, and has a difficult adult conversation. He explains that if they want the expensive private school, they will carry the debt burden themselves. Richard refuses to cannibalize his retirement because he knows the greatest gift he can give his children is not a brand-name diploma, but the absolute guarantee that they will never have to financially support him when he is elderly and frail. If you are reading this and the panic is starting to set in because you realize you are Peter, that is a healthy biological response. It means you are finally waking up to the reality of the board. You cannot fix 20 years of passive financial drift with a weekend budgeting app. Reversing this trajectory requires a violent, structural overhaul of your entire life. Selling a luxury car, stopping all unnecessary consumption, and severing your emotional attachment to what your neighbors think of you. The 45-year milestone is the point of no return. You cannot rewind the clock, and you cannot ask the market for a refund on the last 2 decades. But you can stop the bleeding today. Wealth building is not a mystery. It is not a secret code reserved for the elite. It is the predictable mathematical result of executing boring, highly disciplined decisions over a long period of time. You extinguish consumer debt. You align your net worth with the brutal math of the wealth equation. You simplify your investments to slash fees. You hoard a year of liquid oxygen. You protect your credit like it is your physical health. You build an impenetrable wall of insurance against bad luck. And you legally bind your legacy so that your death does not financially destroy the people you spend your life trying to protect. The game is entirely in your hands. You just have to decide if you want to look rich for the neighbors today, or if you actually want to be bulletproof tomorrow.